Welcome to the From My Stand podcast with Matt Hinkle. Whether you are an avid hunter, a novice, or someone interested in the sport, Matt has a unique perspective to share. Sit back, relax, and kick your boots up as Matt shares what he's seeing from his stand.
Hi, friends. Thanks for joining us today. I'm your host, Matt Hinkle, and tonight we're going to be talking about AM versus PM for deer hunting. Which one's better, mornings or evenings? And I know last time we had an episode about stands versus blinds, tree stands versus blinds, and I gave kind of a safe answer and said that I prefer both depending on the circumstance. You know, sometimes a blind is better, sometimes a stand is better. Now, in a general sense, that is the same answer for what's better, mornings or evenings. Well, it kind of depends on the situation, but I am going to give you an answer, like a real answer tonight. I'm going to let you know what I think and what I prefer, morning hunting for whitetail deer or evening hunting for whitetail deer. Before we get into that, though, let me just welcome all of our new subscribers and new viewers. The channel has been doing really, really well lately. It's been growing. We've got a lot of new subscribers, a lot of new viewers. And so I just want to welcome everybody. And we're glad that you found us. And if you're watching and you have not yet subscribed, I would ask that you would do that. As this channel grows, we'll just be able to make it better and better. And so that would really help us out. I would appreciate it if you wouldn't mind doing that. So morning hunting or evening hunting for whitetail deer, which one is better? Well, let's talk about that for a few minutes. Now, I'm going to say some things. First of all, let me just give you a little bit of my history. And this has been my experience. Now, if your experience differs from my experience, that doesn't mean that I'm right and you're wrong. And it doesn't mean that you're wrong, right, and I'm wrong. It doesn't have to mean that. I'm just going to kind of give you some general truisms that I've found to be true through the years. And I want to start with that because the things I'm getting ready to tell you are almost going to sound contradictory, but they're not. But they are all the things that I took into consideration when I tried to answer, because I wanted to answer this question for me first before I made an episode about this, before we took the camera and told you what I think. I wanted to think about it. And so I kind of established a few facts in my own mind, and I want to tell you what those things are. So first of all, AM versus PM hunting. First of all, I believe, to the best of my recollection, now I haven't kept as detailed records as I wish I would have through the years. I've been hunting for over 30 years. But to the best of my recollection, I believe that it is true to say this. I have seen more deer in the evening than I have in the morning. Okay. Now, I cannot say with any certainty at all. I don't even want to guess, but I can't say with any real certainty which I've hunted more of, the morning or the evening. I just have no idea. I'm the kind of guy, I hunt when I can. If it's in season and I can be out there, I try to be out there. Sometimes I hunt in the morning, come in for lunch, and take a little break and then get back out in the evenings. There's been times where I only had a half a day and I could hunt the morning, but I had to be back home for something that evening and I only hunted the morning that day, and vice versa. I've done the same thing for evening hunts. And so I have no idea if I've hunted more in the morning or hunted more in the evening, but I do, to the best of my recollection, believe that I have seen more deer, more numbers of deer in the evening than I have in the morning. Something else, and this is a fact, the biggest buck that I have ever seen from a stand, the biggest buck that I've ever seen out in the wild, I saw on an evening stand. Okay. It was the third Friday in October, about 20 years ago. And I did rattle that buck in, and no, I did not get him. I was hunting with a recurve that night, and I really think with a compound, I'd have probably got him, but I was hunting with a recurve that night, and I did not get him. But he is the biggest deer I've ever seen on hoof, and that was on an evening stand. Another thing, I think that I have shot more deer in the evening than I have in the morning. I do believe that I've shot more deer in the evening than I have in the morning, just as far as gross numbers go. Now, let's talk about the morning for just a minute. I've had better luck calling, and I do like to call deer. I'll use a grunt tube. I do like to use rattling antlers at the right time of the year, and I have had better luck rattling and grunting in the morning than I have in the evening. So there's that. I have seen more as far as total numbers. I have seen more mature bucks. Now, I know I just told you that I saw the biggest buck I've ever seen on an evening stand, and that's true. But I think as far as sheer numbers go, I've seen more mature bucks in the morning than I have in the evening. And then one last thing before I go ahead and tell you what I prefer and why I prefer it. One other thing, my three biggest bucks to date were all shot in the morning. Two were with a bow, one was with a gun, and all three of those bucks, my three personal best, were all shot on morning sits. So that's just some things I tried to take into consideration when I was thinking through this. And so I wanted to give you those basic facts. Now, let's talk about which one I prefer and which one I think is better. And I know I'm going to stir up a lot of controversy. Feel free to let me know in the comments what you think, because I am interested in what you have to say. But so I'm not going to make everybody happy with this answer. But my favorite, if you backed me into a corner and said you can only hunt one today, a morning or an evening, and it's, peak of the rut, perfect time to be out, and I had to pick one or the other, this is the one that I would pick. I prefer morning sits over evening sits. Now, I love to hunt in the evening. From a feeling standpoint, I like to hunt the evenings. Usually it's a little more comfortable. The temperatures are a little bit better. It's easier to find your way to your stand. I mean, there are things, and evening hunting is good. But if I had to pick one, and I would pick mornings every single time. Now, I've got some reasons for that. Let me give you some reasons why I like being in a tree stand in the morning, even a little bit, as much as I love to be out there in the evening, why I like to be out there in the mornings more than I like to be out there in the evenings. The first reason is there is an open-ended cutoff time. Okay? There's an open-ended cutoff time. When you're hunting the morning, you can allow you can be driven by how things are going. Okay? When you're hunting in the evening, there's a definite cutoff time. When in our state, it's 30 minutes after sunset. And in our hunting laws, there's a table in the back with every day of hunting season, what the exact time of sunset is for that day. And you're allowed to deer hunt 30 minutes past sunset. And usually after that, you can't see anyway. So there's like a definite cutoff time. What I like about the morning is there's no definite cutoff time. You can hunt till 10, you can hunt till 11, you can hunt till noon, you can stay all day, just whatever. But there's no predetermined cutoff point. You can kind of stay out there and let the situation dictate to you what you're going to do. So that's one thing I like about the morning, is that just that open-ended cutoff time. Now, just so you know, I try to stay in the tree till 11 o'clock. Sometimes I stay later than that. And there's been times where I've wimped out, went in early. Maybe I wasn't seeing anything, or the weather turned off bad, or something came up and I just had to go, or whatever. But I try to stay out till 11 o'clock. And that policy, that general rule of thumb has been good to me through the years. Okay. So number one, first reason I like morning hunting over evening hunting is there is an open-ended cutoff time. You're not so driven by the clock, whereas in the evening, when it's dark, it's over. Okay. Number two, a second reason I like hunting in the morning is I feel a lot more comfortable calling in the morning than I do in the evening. Um, I am more prone to call in the morning. I'm more prone and comfortable using a call in the morning than I am in the evening. I have found through the years that deer do not always respond to a grunt tube immediately. They don't always respond to rattling antlers immediately. One time I rattled a mature buck in, and I didn't know I rattled him in. I did a sequence of antler rattling, and then I got up in my stand. And by the way, when you rattle, I suggest you get stood up, get your bow in your hand, and get ready, because sometimes they can come in fast, other times they come in slow, but they always come in looking. They know, I don't care how far away that buck was, he knows where that sound came from. And when he comes in, the one disadvantage to calling is you have kind of given away your location. When he comes in, he's going to be looking. And so when that buck comes in response to a call, you are not going to be able to be up in that tree fiddling around with equipment, getting your bow off the hook. You need to be ready. So I did a sequence of rattling, and I got ready. I got stood up, got my bow in my hand, just like I always do. And I would say it was probably a half an hour went by. And all of a sudden, I started hearing something. I heard something coming through the leaves. And you're going to make fun of me. You're going to laugh when you hear this, but I thought it was a deer coming. I couldn't see anything, but I could hear something coming. I was hunting in some open timber, but there was a clear cut right next to me. And man, I thought for sure this deer was coming in. I would hear sound and then stop, sound and then stop, sound and then stop. And after about 20 minutes of this, finally I saw what it was. It was a coon. It was a raccoon. And when I saw that, now I was about 45 minutes after my calling sequence, and I just kind of took a big sigh of relief. Thought, well, that's what I've been hearing. And I mean, I know I didn't call him in, but that's what I've been hearing. I didn't hear anything else or see anything else. So I let myself relax. I moved. I hung my bow up on the tree, and I sat down. I was being as still as I could, but I moved a little bit, and that's when I heard it. I heard a stomp. I heard not really a blow, because bigger bucks, they don't really blow at you, but he kind of snorted at me, and I looked up in that direction. It was a very nice mature whitetail buck, and I rattled him in, had no idea. And I think if I'd have stayed still, I think he would have made his way in, or at least tried to make his way around me and got downwind of me or something. But I might have seen him. But here's the point I'm making: if I'm hunting in the evening, I pretty much stop rattling at I, an hour before dark is the latest that I would rattle, because sometimes it takes 45 minutes to an hour for that buck to come in. And I don't want to call a buck in and him arrive when I'm getting down and getting out of there. That is counterproductive. And so, but the deal is, in the morning, I'll rattle. I rattle without a whole lot of reservation. I'm not near as worried about it. And I try not to overcall. But in the morning, I'm just not worried about it, because I know I can stay until I'm convinced I didn't call anything in. So I'm just more comfortable calling in the morning. In our part of the country and where I hunt, a third thing is, in the mornings we just generally have calmer winds. I have found, at least where I hunt, and I do hunt some pretty hilly country, sometimes we'll have windy nights, but that wind has a tendency to kind of lay down right at sunrise. It usually, that's the coldest part of the day, and I have found it to be one of the calmest parts of the day on average, where opposed to evenings, a lot of times where we hunt, as the temperature rises, as the day wears on, the wind can pick up. And sometimes you didn't have any wind in the morning, and then all of a sudden that evening you got wind, and I hunt a lot of hill country, and it can be swirling around. And so, I'm not saying I don't hunt in the evening, but I just generally have a little better luck with the wind in the morning than I do in the evening. Here's something else too. In the morning, the air current thermals are rising because in the morning the temperature is rising and those thermals are rising. And so your scent has a tendency to rise in the morning. And so if you're already in the stand above that deer and your thermal scent signature is kind of rising anyway, because that's the direction the thermals move in the morning, you just have a little bit better chance not being winded. In the evening, as the atmosphere is cooling, those thermal currents drift down. And so again, I'm not saying don't hunt the evening. I'm just saying I think I've probably been winded more on evening sits than I have on morning sits. Another one. So I don't know how many we named. Well, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, 5. Here's a fifth reason I like to hunt in the morning. Okay, it's plenty light. When you shoot, you've got plenty of light to track and pack that deer out. Okay. Now, I told you earlier, I think I've probably shot more deer in the evening than I have in the morning, but I like shooting them in the morning better. Okay. Because you've got plenty of daylight. You can track them, you can pack them, you can get them out. Sometimes all before dark, depending on how far in you are. And you know how it is in the evening, man. If you shoot one right before dark, you're in for a long night. Now, I'll do it. If it's a deer that I deem worth shooting, I don't care to have a long night tracking him and then dragging him out. And I don't care to be tired the next day. It's all worth it. But all I'm saying is I like the morning better because they can just be a lot easier to find and they can be a lot easier to get out. And so that's another reason I like hunting the mornings better. And then let me give you one last reason. This is the sixth and final reason. And this is my biggest reason. Okay. It has nothing to do with what's more comfortable, what's more likable. It has to do with deer behavior. And so let me give you um, a theory that I have. Okay. I'm not a game biologist. I'm not a scientist, and I'm not a professional hunter. Okay. I'm just a guy that's done a lot of hunting, and this is what I have found through my experience. And this is a theory that I have. Okay. You're welcome to agree with it. You're welcome to disagree with it. But this is what I found to be true. Um, I generally am after mature bucks. Now, I know that's going to make me unpopular with some people right away. I don't tend to call myself a trophy hunter. I call myself a mature buck hunter. Now, that doesn't mean that I don't shoot does, and that doesn't mean that I've never shot or would never in any circumstance shoot an immature buck. But generally, when I'm out there, I'm after mature whitetail bucks. That's normally what I'm after. Now, um, I love to fill my freezer with deer meat. I do shoot does for that purpose. But what really gets me out there is hunting mature whitetail bucks. And um, mature whitetail bucks, people will say this. And mature whitetail bucks are like a species within a species. Okay. It's almost like a game within a game. And look, I don't care if you shoot small bucks or if you shoot does. That doesn't bother me. I'm not real rigid on this, but I just enjoy that cat and mouse game. I enjoy the chess match with a mature buck. I do like the antlers. I mean, I don't feel guilty about that. I do like the antlers, but mature bucks are almost like a species within a species. And you hear guys say, well, he went nocturnal on me. That buck went nocturnal on me. It is my belief. I operate with a general belief that mature bucks are all nocturnal by and large. They are most comfortable at night. They feel the most secure at night. They're going to do the majority of their feeding. They're going to do the majority of their moving. They're going to do the majority of their breeding, all of that kind of stuff If they can do it at night, they're going to. Now, I realize that during certain times of the year, they are looking for does, and even at some points they are in full chase mode, and they move a lot more in daylight hours, and that's why we hunt them. Then that's why it's such a good idea to be in the woods during those times. But most of the time, whitetail bucks, they want to be in cover during daylight hours, and then they want to move at night. So they are generally speaking, they're a nocturnal animal. Now, here's my logic, here's my theory, and here's what my experience has been. If a buck wants to move at night, remember, bucks, they don't have calendars, they don't have clocks, they don't have alarm clocks. They move by nature's cues, okay? Um, and so a buck, if he wants to move at night, he's not going to get up until it's dark, okay? If he wants to move at night, he's not going to, the darkness is never going to catch him off guard, okay? It's never going to catch him. He's never going to find himself out too late and too far from his security area and get caught by the dark, okay? He's going to stay in his cover. He's going to stay tight if he wants to come out at night. He's going to stay tight until it's dark, and then he's going to move. All right. And if you're only hunting him in the evenings, you may never see him, because he's not going to move until legal shooting hours are over, and you're just never going to get an opportunity at it. But they can get caught by first light. Okay. My son last year, he shot a really, really nice mature 8-pointer. It was his first mature buck. Now, he's shot some other deer, but he shot a really nice buck last year. And I'm not kidding. This buck, he shot that buck within a few minutes of first light. Okay. We were in a blind together, and we were sitting side by side in the blind, and I was kind of like, I was in my chair. He was hunting. I mean, it was legal shooting hours, but it was just barely just first light. It was the If it was any darker, we wouldn't have even seen this buck. And and so I'm in the blind, and I'll be honest with you, he was hunting. I really wasn't. I was leaned over. I had some binoculars. I had rattling antlers. I had a couple of things on the floor, and I was positioning things. And all of a sudden, he was just whispered. He said, "Dad, there's a deer." And I was looking down at the floor, and I was kind of bent over my chair, and I said, "Okay, don't move." And I started just raising my head up real slow, and then we were both watching him, and that deer moved, and he was coming toward us. And the next thing we saw is that he was a buck, and then the next thing that we saw is that he was a good buck. And so he's going to shoot this deer, and I'm not kidding. He shot this deer within a few minutes of first legal shooting light. And I really think in that buck's mind, he was still kind of moving in the dark, because we were in the woods, we were in timber, okay? It was legal shooting light, but it was darker in those woods than it was out on an open field. I don't think that buck would have even been in an open field at that time of the day, but it was in the woods. It was just such low light, but it was legal light, but it was low light. And I think in that buck's mind, he was on his way to security, and we just happened to be in the right place at the right time. They are more likely to stay out just a little too long than to go out a little too early. Okay, that's my theory. That's my philosophy. You can let me know in the comments what you think. But as a general rule of thumb, the reason I like hunting mornings better than evenings is because I believe most of the activity is at night. And I just really believe that if a buck's going to make a mistake, he's not going to make a mistake getting up too early. But he might get out and eat a little too much, or chase a few too many girls, and he might stay out just a little bit too late. And if you're in his vicinity, I think you just have a better chance of getting them in the mornings than you do in the evenings. Now, I could be totally wrong. I'm not a game biologist. I'm not a scientist. but I have seen more mature bucks in the morning hours than I have the evening. But let me tell you this, the best time to hunt is when you can. The best time to hunt is when you can. Um, Hunt mornings, hunt evenings. If you do enough of it, they're all going to be good to you. I've had memorable hunts in the morning. I've had memorable hunts in the evening. I don't tend to sit on stands all day, but I've had memorable hunts very, very late in the morning to what you would almost call lunchtime. So, my hunting mentor has always told me you don't get them if you're not out there. So get out there when you can. And if you do enough of this, they're all going to be good to you. And you're going to have memories and you're going to have successes both in the morning, evening, midday, just all of the above. But if you're asking me, I like the mornings best. Okay. Well, I hope that you'll subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I do want to welcome all of our new viewers and subscribers who have just found us. We're really trying to build a community of outdoorsmen on this channel, and I'm very excited to be a part of this venture with you. And so, anyway, I hope you're having a good season. I hope you've enjoyed today's episode. I'm your host, Matt Hinkle, and that's how I see it from my stand.